Hi Hermits, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dara and today Milo and I are going to be sharing our Koreadathon TBR. So if you haven't heard of this readathon, Koreadathon is a 7-day... Hi. Oh, I'm sorry Casper, were you not getting enough attention? You're both so cute. Koreadathon is a 7-day reading challenge hosted by Monica Kim and Books with Chloe, and it's all centered around really amplifying Korean authors and literature. So every book on this list will be either translated from the Korean or written in English by a Korean author. So there are a series of prompts to follow if you do want to participate. So I'm gonna talk you through them now, but I'll also pop them in the description box so that you can come back and take a look later. And I'm also going to be sharing the books that I picked for each of these. So the first prompt is to read a book translated from Korean. So I've decided to go with this one, which is 7 Years of Darkness by Yoo Jung, and it is translated by, I should have written this down ahead of time, Chi Young Kim. You can see my copy has, can you see? It kind of has teeth marks in it, which is a risk. I don't know if you can really see, but it has teeth marks in the cover because I have 3 collies and they like to fight over the mail when it arrives, so ordering books online can be a bit perilous, but not gonna stop. It makes things look used and aged and loved, so I'm just gonna go with it. But this is a thriller, I believe, which centers around the death of a young girl. She is found by a lake and there are 3 men in the vicinity who all have secrets to protect, and it follows like their 3 stories and their attempts at not just finding the killer but also making sure that nobody looks too hard at them. And I love a thriller. I love discovering a new thriller novelist with a backlist, and it looks like she might fit that bill, so definitely looking forward to diving into this. I also find thrillers to be very quick to read, which is going to be necessary given that this is a week-long readathon and I have quite the stash of books to be getting through. So anyway, all that to say, this is the book that I'm going to be choosing for the translated from Korean prompt. And I don't think I mentioned this, but you can double up here, so you can have one book that serves multiple prompts if you wish. Next we have read a manhwa, webtoon or graphic novel. Now I am not a graphic novel girl, and as soon as I saw this prompt I was like, not gonna happen, I'm gonna switch it out. So I decided to opt for poetry instead. So I thought I'm gonna find some poetry that is written by a Korean author. And what I found was this little gem, Angel and Hannah by Ishli Yi Park. Now this is so it's very much written like a poetry collection. They are distinct poems. It's not just a novel written in verse, but it does tell one cohesive story. So this is actually a retelling of Romeo and Juliet set in 1990s New York. And the couple featured are Hannah, a Korean American girl from Queens, and Angel, a Puerto Rican boy from Brooklyn. And it's set in 1993, and I just feel like this is going to be such a fun time, and also another quick read because I do tend to consume poetry at a much greater speed than pages and pages of prose, so helping me in my endeavour to actually get through all of these books. Our next prompt is read a historical fiction novel. So I have opted for The Court Dancer by Kyung Suk Shin, and I've heard great things about this book. I've seen it recommended in multiple places. I do typically love historical fiction, so it's not stretching me beyond my comfort zone, it's just expanding it, because I honestly haven't read any historical fiction in the past that relates to Korea in any way. So I'm excited to dive into this one. Plus it's got that floppy quality that we all like so much. But apparently this is based on a true story, and it tells the story of a young woman who lived in like a very, I don't want to say restrictive, but let's say the gilded cage of a court. And then she ends up traveling to France with a diplomat and finding liberation and independence. And it's really talking a lot about privilege and femininity and feminism, but in the historical context. Or that's what I believe it to be about. So I'm looking forward to diving in, to be quite honest. Next we have read an award-winning Korean novel, and I took some creative liberties with this because honestly, when I was researching award-winning Korean novels, a lot of what I was coming up against looked, what's the word I'm looking for? It looked quite deep and quite dark, and I'm not in a deep dark mood. Like, I go through many a deep dark era in my year, and when I'm in that moment I do like to read that kind of book. But for right now, I want fun things, I want interesting things, I want things that inspire me, things that excite me, things that delight me. So I've taken some creative liberties here, and the award is the LGBTQ plus book of the year, as awarded by BuzzFeed. So Love in the Big City is my choice for this one, by Sang Young Park, and this just looks like it's going to be lovely. It's described as an energetic, joyful and moving novel that depicts both the glittering nighttime world of Seoul and the bleary-eyed morning after. Young is a cynical yet fun-loving Korean student who pinballs from home to class to the beds of recent Tinder matches. He and Jae-hee, his female best friend and roommate, frequent nearby bars where they suppress their anxieties about their love lives, families and money with rounds of soju and freezer-chilled Marlboro Reds. Yes please, thank you. Here for it. Also, really love the cover. I have a dog sat right on my knee right now. This is not a small dog. Next prompt, because he's clearly not going to move. Read book recommended by a Korean celebrity. Now, again, I took some liberties because when I was doing my research, the books that were coming up once again were either very deep, dark novels or things that weren't written by Korean authors. And because this is Koreadathon, I want to read something by a Korean author. So I decided that I was going to go for a memoir, because memoirs, they're typically like stories of a celebrity's life, and obviously that celebrity is going to recommend their own memoir. So I went for In Order to Live by Yeonmi Park, and I actually have this on my Kindle, and I've also requested the audiobook from my library. But this tells the story of a young girl who escaped from North Korea and made her way to South Korea. And I wanted to have something that sort of touched on both Koreas on this TBR. And I do love a memoir. I've been diving into some great ones recently, so this just seemed like a great option. Next we have, our last prompt, which is read a book featuring a Korean diaspora character. So again, I am using Angel and Hannah for this one. So we have our Korean American protagonist, Hannah. She's ticking my box for the Korean diaspora character. And then I also have a wildcard book, because there is a group read for this readathon, which is I believe is it Sumrin Sokcho. And when I was reading the synopsis, I was just like, I don't know if I want to read this. Like, I'm sure if I was in a different kind of mood, it would really appeal to me, but for some reason I just wasn't feeling it. So I thought, okay, I am going to just go and find like one more book to add to my TBR to replace the group read. And so I have opted for Please Look After Mother, which is by the same author as The Court Dancer, Kyung Suk Shin. Because this one, I've heard it talked about or like read about it being talked about, so it's featured in a lot of articles and roundups and things like that. So it did pique my interest, but I believe it tells the story of a family reacting to the matriarch disappearing. So she is at the train station and suddenly disappears. Nobody knows what happens to her, and it's sort of about the different factions of the family coping with that, I believe. But love a bit of mystery, love some family drama. So I think it's just going to tick a lot of my boxes. But that makes it quite a chunky TBR for 1 week. So that is 6 books in total to be read in 7 days. I mean, it's not doable, but it might be a challenge given that I do have, you know, a full-time job, 3 needy dogs to take care of, and you know, life to live. But I'm going to give it a good bash. And even if I don't get through all of these books during the readathon, they're all books that I'm interested in reading. So if I do need to extend it a little bit, like, who's going to die? Nobody. I really am interested in reading each of these. And I love that for me, because so often when I decide I'm going to participate in readathons, I obsess over fulfilling the prompts so much that I often end up picking books that I don't like. And what's worse is that I pick books I know I'm not going to like. And I love that I haven't done that this time. So definitely excited to dive into this readathon. And I'm going to pop all of the information for it in the description box. Hopefully I will post this video in time for you to join. But if not, then go and click all of the links and check out the other creators who have put so much time and effort into this challenge, both the hosts and the participants. And yeah, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. There are also going to be some lifestyle challenges for the week of the readathon. So one is to cook a Korean meal or a Korean dish. I'm going to be making bibimbap, so I've just had all of my spices delivered and definitely excited to dive into that. What you may not know about me is that I'm a bit of a machine in the kitchen. I love to cook, but I've never cooked Korean food, so this is really exciting for me. The second lifestyle challenge is to support Korean creators. So one way that I've done that is like paying full price for one of these was secondhand, but paying full price for 5 of the books that I've chosen for the readathon. Typically I'm a secondhand book buyer or I'm a library reader, so that for me feels like supporting Korean creators. But then also I'm going to be sharing some of my favorite Korean authors and YouTubers on my like bookish Instagram that week. So definitely like follow along if you want to see some recommendations there. The link is in the description. And last but not least, watch a Korean film or TV show. And I'm going to go to my granddad for a recommendation here, because fun fact, my granddad loves a K-drama. His fine like 75-year-old self sits there in his living room with his tea and his biscuits watching K-dramas, and I love that about him. So I'm gonna give him a ring, ask him for a recommendation, and then pick one of his favorites to spend some time with. All in all, I think this is going to be a really fun time, and if you can join us, please do. There's a lot of great chat already happening in the Discord, and if not, then that's okay too. I will tell you all about the books that I've read in this month's wrap up, and let's keep our fingers crossed that it's going to be all of them. All right, If you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit subscribe, and I would love if you dropped into the comments and let me know if you've read any of these books, or alternatively if you have any additional recommendations by Korean authors, because you know, this might be something that we keep up with. I will definitely be participating in Koreadathon next year too, so I might just need a new stack of books. So hit me with your recommendations and I'll be most appreciative. On that note, I'm going to love you and leave you to have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time.